sports.
ESPN 1000 Chicago College Tailgate Show with Jonathan Hood, Chris Black, and Adam Abdallah.
ESPN 1000 and the ESPN Chicago app.
The CCT scoreboard on ESPN 1000.
We turn now to Chris Black with our CCT scoreboard, for God's sake.
At halftime, Georgia, Tennessee. Tennessee leads 21-17. Wow. Bulldogs had a chance to punch it in at the end of the half. The ball stands tall. They go to the half. 21-17 in that contest. Upset bird alive. Auburn in Arkansas, 17-12. The Tigers lead with 2 minutes left in the second quarter of that one. BYU's up 14-3 on Texas San Antonio. Iowa State leads 21-7 over Texas Tech with 10 minutes left in the third quarter. Other scores from earlier today, some finals. Missouri, they beat LSU, the 17th ranked team in the country, 45-41. Texas is not back as Oklahoma wins in 4 overtimes, 53-45 over the Longhorns. Texas A&M, they beat Florida, the 4th ranked team in the country, 41-38. And North Carolina, they beat Virginia Tech 56-45, and that's the top 25 scoreboard right here on Chicago's College Tailgate.
Our Saturday night specials will come your way at 5 o'clock as we put money in your pocket, but the game of the weekend is Oklahoma and Texas. Oklahoma, the Sooners getting the job done in 4 overtimes, winning 53-45. R.J. Young is the authority when it comes to Oklahoma sports. You can also hear him tonight at 11 o'clock right here on ESPN 1000 with game night, and RJ joins us here on Chicago's College Tailgate. RJ, Jonathan, Adam, and Chris, thanks so much for your time.
Hey, guys, thanks so much for having me.
Also, check out the YouTube page as well. Just look for RJ Young for his YouTube page so you can see his review of this game. How are you still living after 4 overtimes watching Oklahoma go back and forth against Texas? How's that happening?
I was resuscitated twice. First time when Woody Washington picked it off in the end zone when I thought the game was over, and then Lincoln Riley looked at the cute part of his play card and decided that was what he was going to run. And then once again, when Sam Ehlinger threw a interception to one of the hometown kids here in Tulsa, Trey Brown, to seal the victory. So I died a couple of times.
What happened in the second quarter to the offense? They were finding success in the first quarter, and then it seemed like did they abandon something, and then they found it again when they had to rally back in the third quarter, and then obviously they couldn't score again in the fourth quarter, allowing Texas to come back. Where did the inefficiencies come through in the offense?
Who was the quarterback, man? Like, that was really the question that I was asking, because at that time we didn't know that Rattler was out because of an injury, or he was out because, well, he was stinking it up at the Apollo and Lincoln Riley wanted to give him the hook. And it turned out he wanted to give him the hook, which was an interesting move because we haven't seen Riley actually do that before to any starting quarterback, no matter how much he has struggled. And then you have Tanner Mordecai, who is throwing the ball all over the yard. Sometimes he gets bailed out, sometimes he does not. I believe he's 5 of 7 passing in that quarter that you're talking about. But it was also, Chris Ash was dialing up a pretty good defense, and his linebackers came to play. Guys like Juwan Mitchell and Demarion Overshone, and they were really just able to frustrate them in ways that Oklahoma's, quite frankly, been frustrated all year. And knowing that you did not have a Seth McGowan to really say, okay, that's the bell cow in the backfield that we're going to hand the ball to, meant that TJ Pledger or Marcus Major were going to have to assume that responsibility. And they weren't able to actually do that until the third quarter, in which started to see the offense kind of click and play their best football.
More specifically with Spencer Rattler and Lincoln Riley, that relationship, we've watched Lincoln Riley and multiple quarterbacks over the last couple of years have extreme success, especially in their first year in this system. How would you grade out Spencer Rattler and his performance to this point this season with Lincoln Riley?
B-, because I had really high hopes for Rattler when he got to Oklahoma. As a matter of fact, you could make an argument that he scared off the guy that is backing up Mac Jones at Alabama and the guy backing up Sam Ehlinger at Texas. I expected him to play not unlike Baker Mayfield in his first year with Lincoln Riley in 2015, where you might see 30-plus touchdowns. You might also see 12 picks in a season. Right now, he's thrown at least one interception against every Big 12 team that he's faced, and there are 9 other teams to face in this league. But there were some really uncharacteristic mistakes made by him from the film that we have seen. And I think it's growing pains as much as anything, because you can see the talent that he has. You're just going to need to continue to play him and give him opportunities to make those mistakes. And he learned today that that job is not his for as long as he's at Oklahoma. He can lose it, and he did lose it if for no longer than a quarter.
RJ Young will be on tonight after 10 o'clock right here on ESPN 1000. You're not allowed to rant and rave until that show, by the way. You got to save your voice for the national audience, man. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not worth it. It's not worth it, man, for you to be ranting and yelling. Wait until the show. So how do you look now at the Big 12 now? So we all know Sooners have 2 losses. That was a big game today against Texas because that's always interesting. What's your outlook now of the Big 12 as far as the upper echelon?
It's Texas Christian and Kansas State right now. Like, we'll see what this weekend looks like. And I think that if Iowa State can pull off the win against Texas Tech like I thought they could, it's topsy-turvy. I mean, and that's going and talking without Oklahoma State actually playing this weekend. They're undefeated in Big 12 play, and they'll come back next week. I think that I don't know what to do with this league right now is the answer to your question, because the teams that I expected to be good, Oklahoma and Texas, have each caught 2 losses in Big 12 play, and we've only played 3 of those games. And teams that I thought to be not necessarily very good, like West Virginia or Kansas State, have proven to be every bit the match for these upper echelon teams. So I can't call it, man, and I don't think that I'm going to be able to call it until they play a Big 12 championship game this season.
Mm-hmm. Turn on my mic, that might help.
That's
fine. And Iowa State, should they be able to win this game, they could be the one team that, kind of moves up into the polls. Do you see a chance that there is some things would have to happen? Obviously an SEC team or 2 would have to lose, but is there a chance, and do you think that a Big 12 team should be in the conversation for the conference, the playoff at the end of the year?
Absolutely not. Not at all. No. I don't care if LSU lost to Missouri today. I don't. I don't care who loses, or Georgia or Tennessee. I don't care if Arkansas beats Auburn, right? You can't put a Big 12 team in the playoff this year for the simple fact that when they matched up against Sun Belt teams, they went 0-for. Coastal Carolina gets a win against Kansas. ULL beats that Iowa State team that we all think is pretty decent now. And, of course, Kansas State lost to an Arkansas State team that couldn't play the next week because they caught the COVID. You can't look at the Big 12 and not call it a Sun Belt property in 2020. And if you're going to put a team in that has 1 loss or has gone undefeated, you got to really think about that team that wins the Sun Belt right now if they are that team that goes undefeated or with 1 loss, because of how those teams matched up against what I thought were the middle of the pack in the Big 12. So, no, I don't see it. I think there would have to be even more chaos among the national college football stage for that to happen, to say nothing of whatever is going to happen in the Big 10. I just can't wait for chaos to get there as well.
RJ, you mentioned TCU earlier, and they're the next opponent for Oklahoma next week. Why is Gary Patterson so successful at TCU? And, each year it seems like they're not ranked and they're not expected to do anything. And then at the end of the day, we always have to talk about them as a team who is upsetting the best teams in the Big 12, and they're always in the mix.
I think it's one, longevity. He's been allowed to be head coach at TCU for 20-plus years now, and you got to respect how they feel about him. The other part about being at Texas Christian is you're not going to recruit with Texas. You're not going to recruit with Oklahoma. You have a hard time recruiting with Baylor and Texas Tech. What he does so well is identify guys that are underdeveloped in high school who have traits that he cannot teach. An example of this would be a couple of years ago with an LJ Collier, who was a 2-star player from West Texas that was playing some wide receiver. And Gary Patterson said, come to Texas Christian. I will blow you up into a defensive end. He becomes a first-round draft pick. We could say the same thing about guys like Jalen Reagor on the other side of the ball playing wide receiver. He becomes a first-round draft pick. Each and every year, he's able to overdevelop this talent that the NFL really loves. And if he ever has a quarterback, they're going to be good. When they had Trayvon Boykin, they were a playoff team. When they had Casey Paul Hall, they were good. Now with Max Duggan, they have an opportunity to be great once again. I think it's really just him running that 4-2-5, him identifying the talent that he needs to run it, and having an offense that stays out of the defense's way.
RJ will be on later on tonight on game night here on ESPN 1000 after 10 o'clock. Also, check out his YouTube page, youtube.com. Look for RJ Young and subscribe. As always, my friend, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on with us here in Chicago.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Is RJ Young, no voice left after screaming at his Sooners.